Greetings, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Adaptive Recreation. It's my pleasure to be with you all in here today. I'm Lori Sjogren, Community Program and Services Director for the National Ataxia Foundation, and I will be assisting with today's webinar. Today's webinar is meant to provide you with information and share with you a few experiences about adaptive recreation. So please consider your personal safety when considering a recreation activity and consult with your medical provider about any concerns. We want to keep everyone safe out there. We have a great panel of speakers today to discuss this fun topic. On today's panel is Chelsea Elder from Adaptive Adventures, Dave Thomson from the Midwest Rivers Trails and Conservation Program, Michael Kamer, who is the support group leader for the Central Pennsylvania Ataxia Support Group and serves on NAF's Board of Directors, and Linda Snider Sidwell, who is the Nebraska Ataxia Support Group leader and also serves on NAF's Board of Directors. Linda will also assist with facilitating today's discussion. Now I'll invite Linda to start us off today. Welcome, Linda.
Hi, thank you. I'm not tech savvy. I'm trying to. Okay. Thank you. Before we get going, I just want to say thank you to the NAF and to Lori Sjogren in particular, because we were supposed to have this talk in Denver at the annual Ataxia conference, but that was canceled for obvious reasons. And they're converting all of those talks into web versions, and so they're accessible to everybody, and I really appreciate that. So thank you. Okay, here we go. So living with ataxia just means you have challenges, right? A lot of people discuss their life prior to ataxia and then after ataxia. And they make a distinction like, oh, before ataxia, I did this, that, and the other thing. And now after ataxia, I can't do those things, or I won't do those things, or I don't do those things anymore. And so really, that can lead to a lot of anxiety and depression. So I think one of the challenges with having ataxia is just finding new ways to do old things. And that includes simple things like getting dressed or taking a shower, putting on your shoes, but also let's not forget, we may work for a paycheck, but everything we do on our free time or off time is really what brings us joy to our lives. And that makes us unique as people and as individuals. And so we really have to keep in mind that those hobbies are part of our lives and to keep those up as well. You just have to find a new way. There are a lot of benefits to having hobbies. And so sometimes, there's kind of the more obvious physical benefit, particularly if you swim or ride a bike or do something active like that. But to me, and maybe more importantly, are the mental aspects of having hobbies. And it brings you joy, it brings you happiness, and who doesn't need more of that in their lives, right? And then also it helps reduce stress. So particularly now when there's less human contact because we're in isolation and things like that, well, that creates a lot of stress. And so this is one way that we can help reduce some of that stress. And also it helps you with a sense of community and a sense of belonging, particularly if you can find other people with similar interests. So you join a club or a group of people of similar mindset with you, and then all of a sudden that gives you a sense of empowerment as well. So many hobbies out there, some of them complicated, some of them easy, right? Sitting at home, reading a book, or listening to music, going into your backyard to do some gardening, or going for a walk, or go to the gym. I personally love to travel and see new places, but also, there are Martha Stewart types out there. I'm not one, but there are so many people who are good at crafting, right? Sewing, knitting, coloring, or making something beautiful. So there's so many excuses that people give to not do what they love. So I'm just going to go through a few that I hear fairly frequently. I'm afraid I'm going to fail. Well, we are human, and so that means we're not perfect at everything. We're not supposed to be the best at everything we do, and that's okay. That's how it is. The other thing is, it's not a competition. It's a hobby. They're not Olympic athletes being timed from point A to point B. Just getting out there, doing what you love, and having fun doing it. The other thing is, some people feel they're critical about themselves. I don't look right. I don't talk right. I don't walk right, whatever. You're more critical about yourself than anybody else is. Nobody's sitting there judging you. You're probably judging yourself, but other people really aren't. I can't do it alone. Well, we can't get through life alone. So you really have to be honest with yourself and with other people about what you need and what you want, and have those people in your life that are going to help you with your journey. I'll do it later. Okay, procrastination, not great for people with ataxia, because no matter what you're doing today, it's just going to get harder. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 2 months from now, whatever you're doing now is going to get more difficult. And so putting something off is probably not an ideal situation. If there's something that you want to do or want to try to do it now. It's too expensive. Well, admittedly, there are some hobbies that are expensive. They require, equipment or travel or something. So definitely find something that fits into your budget. So, for example, the local library has free books for you. You can't hold a book or turn a page. They have books on tape that you can borrow. Go outside, go for a walk, go for a roll, go to your local park. There are many apps on your phone that you can use to color and do different things, and those things cost nothing. A lot of it, I think, is sometimes we just don't know what's available that's out there to help us. And so sometimes I think that's a difficult situation, right? Just knowing what's available, right, is part of half the battle. So here's a short list of what's available. There's definitely a lot more if you do a little bit of research. So these are just a few things. So Wilderness Inquiry is a nonprofit based out of Minnesota, and they do kind of adaptive, inclusive adventure trips. And so they do them in the United States and outside of the United States. They go camping and hiking or rock climbing and different things like that, canoeing. And even if you're wheelchair bound, they have people and equipment that are trained. And so they're able to work with all mobility levels to get that done. Adaptive Adventures out of Colorado is similar, and Chelsea is actually on the panel, and she is the executive director, and so I'll let her talk about that in a little bit. Adaptive Outdoorsman is just a website, right? So if you love spending time outdoors, doing hiking, camping, fishing, and those kinds of things, this website is going to offer you just different tools and different accessories that you can incorporate into your life so you can keep getting outside and enjoying those things. So the Action Track Chair, this is obviously not a traditional wheelchair. This is like, it's got like tank tread tires or something, and it's designed to definitely go backwoods. So it's designed for like gravel or uneven terrain, mud or slush or things like that. So if you live out in the country, or you live on a farm, or you really just want to get into the backcountry, then this is probably the more ideal wheelchair for you. Gardening is a fabulous activity for people who have ataxia. So partly it's so customizable. You can make it small, you could do it inside, you could do it outside, you could do it in a planter or container, you can make a little plot or a big plot. And so if you're in a wheelchair, think about using a raised bed to help you access it. And also, here are some websites, and these sites offer different accessories and tools to use when you have a mobility disorder to help keep you gardening. I scuba dive, and I just love it. Living in Nebraska, the most landlocked state there is, makes that a little bit harder to get to the ocean, but it's worth it. Because when you get to see the wildlife and the nature underwater, it's just a wonderful, freeing experience. I just love it. Plus, you're weightless underwater. There is no gravity, and you're surrounded by water, so falling is not an issue like it is when you're just walking around. And so there are definitely some companies out there that do wheelchair diving. I know of 3. So Dive Pirates, Dive Hearts, and Eels on Wheels. And some of them offer classes. So if you don't know how to scuba dive, you can go to these websites and help find a class in your area to take. If you are a certified diver already, they offer trips. And so they buddy you up with somebody who's able to kind of help you in and out of the water. If you're not able to move your arms and legs, they're able to kind of help tow you around or lead you around under the water as well. If you can breathe, you can definitely scuba dive. Cooking or just kind of everyday activities that become more difficult with ataxia. And so sometimes just knowing what resources are out there, or what tools and tricks are out there to help you get done those everyday activities is nice to know. I ride a recumbent trike, and I love it. It's so much fun. And so recumbent trikes are very low to the ground. They're extremely stable. So even if I try to tip mine over, I'm not sure if I could. And so it's fun. You get to go outside, get a little exercise. The camaraderie that you have with the other people who ride bikes makes it really fun to do. And so I would definitely recommend a recumbent bike, but you definitely have to go to an authorized dealer, because 1, it has to fit properly, and 2, there are so many accessories to the bike. It's almost like buying a car. There's different pedals or hand controls and straps and different things to put on the bike, and so you definitely need to go to someone who's familiar with all the different options the bike's going to have. The other thing you might want to ask about is an electric assist motor, because when you're riding a traditional bike, the first thing that people do when they're going uphill or through a really tough area is going to stand up on the pedals and use their body weight and gravity to help propel them forward. But that is not an option on a recumbent bike. And so having a motor on there can kind of help you through some of those tougher situations. So in conclusion, I just want to say, we have ataxia, but just because we have an illness doesn't mean we can't live life to the fullest. We just have to find, different ways and new ways to do what we've always done to keep our personalities what they've always been, so we don't change. So I want to thank you for your time. And up next on the playlist, we have Mike Kammer. As Lori said before, Mike's actually from Central Pennsylvania. He's the support group leader in that area. He has been referred to as a Superman, and with ataxia, a Superman with no balance. But he's raised 3 kids, including twin 12-year-olds, and so that does in itself require a feat of strength. Thankfully, he has his wife Larissa to help him do that. All right, Mike, here you go.
Thanks, Linda. As you can see here, one of my favorite pastimes is being on the water. This year we got kayaks, the whole family, and the state park that we could do most often is not too far away. It's about 4 miles. It's really not that hard getting in and out of the kayaks. You just get in the water and you sit next to the dock and you step into it and hold on to the dock, and you're pretty stable. My son helps me a lot now. He's like 9 or 10 in the picture on the left. He's a little bit older, 12 now. He's a little bit bigger, so he's able to help me if I need it. He helps me unload the kayaks on and off the vehicle. So it's pretty nice. With social distancing here, lake we're on is Marsh Creek Lake. It's a little over 500 acres, and because of social distancing, We were the only ones on the lake that day. Next slide, please. Okay. Um, the the picture here is adaptive sailing. It's one of the things that Johns Hopkins Ataxia Center has every year. Unfortunately, because of COVID, this year was canceled, but they got a very good program for all abilities. And they have a Ataxia Day where the Ataxia Center is Johns Hopkins sponsors, and it's good for the whole family to go to it. They have the 2-man days here you see in the foreground. Will go on, which last year we did. We usually do, if you can see back a little bit further beyond the safety boat, they have larger sailboats that a lot of people use. But you have the option of either or, and it's a lot of fun. But we tried out the small dinghies this year, or last year, I'm sorry, and it was a lot of fun. They have assist chairs. They will lower you down into the sailboat and assist you with that. But a lot of facilities, a lot of municipalities and townships have recreation departments. If you look, they usually have adaptive programs that they're just trying to name, but just checking your local area and the adaptive programs and see what they have to offer. Next slide, please. This here is my tri-abled. And I usually ride every year the Tour de Chunk. It's 104 miles in north central Pennsylvania in the mountains. And they're doing it for about 6 years now. And unfortunately, that also was canceled this year. But it's, I think, even the active, like Linda said, the trails are just tremendous to get you out and enjoy basically being in civilization. I mean, the first time I was on a trike was in 2012. We had a rock and roll when we were part of the Delaware Central Pennsylvania Combined Support Group, and one of our exhibitors that Kathy de Credenza got was a trike shop out of Mount Airy, Maryland, and they began on that for the first time. It was like a kid at Christmas. Just feeling it went through my hair again because I used to ride bike a lot, and about I don't know 15 years ago I could no longer ride a two-wheeled bike. I did triathlons, and when you can't run and can't ride a two-wheeled bike, they're kind of hard to do. But the tri-abled you see on the left here is I started a Facebook page that's tri-abled Ataxians, and if you ride a trike and you have Ataxia, I encourage you to join. We've talked about different things. It's fairly new, so it's not really that active yet, but we're trying to get there. But like Linda says about that, the different pedals, different styles. They're all different. My tricks is kind of low here. The territory is nice if you have the mobility issues. The stays is up higher. I also have a fence in my driveway. I'm able to hold on to the fence out, lower me and out of the trike. And I ride with clip-ins. I have tried the regular pedals and cannot keep my feet on the pedals because of the ataxia. So I have to use the clip-ins to keep my feet on the pedals. Next slide, please. Also, you can rock climb. It's something that I do a couple times a year. We have 2 rock climbing gyms here in Downing, down Pennsylvania. One downtown, one in Kutzall, which is the next town over. And they're both 45 feet high, and they have the 2 different types of relays. They have a standard relay where somebody helps you and guides you, and they have the automatic relay where you don't need anybody else to help you. You just clip into the harness and start going to the wall. If it gets a little too challenging, if it's hard, you gotta make sure you just look out, and the relays will guide you safely to the ground, and there's very little chance of injury. I guess the hardest part is being on the ground itself. Usually they're padded, so it's a little bit challenging to walk. It's a lot easier to climb the wall and it's walk or the padding. And most rock climbing gyms are very, very helpful. If you let them know you have a disability and you have balance issues, they're very good at helping me. I have not had any problems in any of the gyms I've gone to. Next slide, please. And that's part of the challenging yourself. I love to hike, and I go on a lot of regular hiking trails, but this is something that is on my bucket list. I've always wanted to do. The national parks are awesome at having adaptive and accessible areas. But this one here was a climb at Angel's Landing at Zion National Park. I did this last year after the conference in Vegas. It took a couple of days, went to Utah, and I was surprised at the improved trail from the bottom to almost the top, where you need a chain and it's very narrow. So I did not go much further than that. I got about 90% of the way, and with having a taxi and not very good balance, I didn't want the 1,400 foot drop on either side of me, kind of made me a little bit wheezy and nervous, so I backed off. And I think that's all for my slides. So just be careful out there, know your abilities, and know that Ataxia is a challenge, and be safe. And I'll take back to Linda.
Thanks, Mike. You definitely don't limit yourself in anything you do, and it's so motivational to watch you just get out there and take life by the horns there. So
Thank you.
up next on the playlist, we got David Thomson, who's actually from the Omaha area. And actually, Dave and I are friends, but please don't think everybody in Omaha knows each other. So technically, also Dave is from Iowa. So he has a background in landscape architecture, and he works for the National Park Service, working with inclusivity there and making sure the parks are accessible to everybody. Hit it.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much, Linda. And yeah, it's been a real honor to be, of course, a part of this Ataxia panel and this conference, but also I've connected with Linda Snider and the Nebraska Ataxia group and been a member of that board and so forth. And I've really appreciated that time and all the efforts there. So yeah, so I work for the National Park Service, and the mission of the, you can move on to the next slide, please. Sorry, I didn't get this. And the mission of the National Park Service is to preserve and protect for the use and enjoyment of future generations. And it's to preserve cultural and natural resources. And there's also always a large recreational component to the National Park Service. And, you know, just to stress for the enjoyment of future generations, it's for, you know, all people, right? And so right now there's 419 National Park Service units and 61 national parks, and they're all managed under the same system. A lot of the units are called National Lake Shores or national monuments and those type things, but they all have the same structure and we're all the same agency. So next slide, please. I am the Midwest Region Accessibility Coordinator. There's 6 regions in the National Park Service. In the Midwest region, we have 13 states and 61 park units. Some of the park units that you might recognize are Voyagers, the Arch, Mount Rushmore, Cuyahoga National Park, Buffalo National River, and each one of those park units has a park accessibility coordinator. Some of those are collateral duties, and they have various kind of disciplines that they represent, but each region has a coordinator, and then each park also has a coordinator. Next slide, please. This was training that we did about 1.5 years ago at Theodore Roosevelt National Park in western North Dakota, which is definitely a hidden gem in the Midwest region. The group was represented of park interpreters, facilities folks, concession folks, because if you think about it, even though we have concession contractors in national parks, also a lot of times they're kind of the face of to the various visitors that we have. And so we try to include all our partners and our bookstore staff and, you know, a cross section of the park unit in the trainings. My particular background is in, as Linda mentioned, is in landscape architecture. So the first part of my career, I did a lot of design, build, and access routes, and that's kind of how I became the regional coordinator, park coordinator, and then regional coordinator. But you know, there's 3 primary areas that we focus in on in the national parks: is the physical access, of course, making sure that, you know, those basic park experiences are as accessible as possible, but then also the interpretive aspects of the National Park Service, making sure that our visitor films and our park interpretive talks are as accessible as possible. And then, of course, right now, which is, it's always been a priority, but especially now, is kind of 508 compliance and everything online being digitally accessible. So those are 3 primary areas that I focus in on in my position. So next slide, please. One of the recent success stories in the Midwest region is the interpretive and visitor facility at the Arch in St. Louis. It really has become a model for kind of internationally for basically an interpretive center. And one of the main reasons that it became so successful is that such a strong representation of people with disabilities was actually involved in the process of creating the exhibits and just the overall layout and everything else. So that is something that we're actively always trying to get people with disabilities, local or elsewhere, involved with our design projects. Next slide, please. One of the areas also to highlight in the Midwest is the Apostle Islands National Lakeshore in Wisconsin on Lake Superior. And we have a very active, Tommy Richardson, next slide, please, a very active a park accessibility coordinator on the facility staff. And there's several islands that have boardwalks, accessible boardwalks, boat ramps and boardwalks, and camping areas on the remote islands. And as you can see, the actual footings underneath the boardwalk here don't go down into the ground because a lot of these areas are very rich in archaeological resources. And we're always trying to minimize the impacts to the natural resource. So this is one of the areas where we're trying to use some innovation to make things more accessible. Next slide, please. Another thing, this is just one of those boardwalks that leads to a camp spot or a site, camp pad. And you can see the slide on the right, that's the actual pad itself without the tent in it. But they actually came up with these metal connectors to where you can connect your rain flap to the boardwalk itself. It's those type of things that are available that when staff get to that level of thinking through making things accessible, we know we're going to have a good product in the end. So next slide, please. And so the other thing that I always want to keep in mind as a leader or a manager related to accessibility is we can have the greatest facilities, and we've got a long ways to go always, but how our staff actually interact and making sure that they have legitimate training or meaningful training on how to interact and how to communicate with people with disabilities. And this was just a letter from a mother that had two teenage sons that had disabilities that had gone to several National Park Service units, and they said, the facilities were great and the experience was great, but how park rangers actually treated us was the reason that she wrote the letter. And that's something that we're always trying to improve and be aware of as well. And then next slide, please. So David Jones is the executive director of the Florida Disabled Recreation Organization. And one of my favorite quotes from him is that, people don't, it's a lot cheaper just to buy your fish in the store, right? Most people go fishing to actually have the experience of fishing and to bond with other people in their family or their friends while they're doing that. And so that's something that really, I think in a lot of cases resonates with National Park Service staff, is that we see people having that kind of once a year experience of going off to Yellowstone or wherever it may be, and having that bonding experience. And usually when I can communicate that on to our park staff, that they get it, that, it's not just that lone person in the wheelchair, that a lot of times it's a family experience, right? And we want to be inclusive not only to that individual, but the entire family. So next slide, please. And then, something else that resonates, a lot of times the National Park Service, you think of course, our natural beauty in parks like Yellowstone or Glacier or Grand Teton. But in the National Park Service, we actually have, and in particular in the Midwest region, we have park units that are connected to just basic civil rights related to education, like Little Rock Central High, Brown versus Board in Topeka, and so forth. And so that's another thing that we're always trying to be aware of, that, you know, this is part of civil rights, and we want to be inclusive to everybody. And then in closing, I just want everybody to make sure that you're aware of the Interagency Access Pass, which is a lifetime pass. And you can go to the link that I have there. It's basically, let's see, it's under usgs.gov/pass. And it's right now you can get it online with the $10 handling fee, or mail in also. So if you Google that, I'm sure you can find that as well. Yeah, and that's all I have. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. Watching
Yeah.
you turn your passion for inclusivity into action, we all very much appreciate that, because we love the national park system. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So up next, last but definitely not least, we have Chelsea Elder. Chelsea is the executive director of Adaptive Adventures out of Colorado. She herself is so passionate about the programs and services, and does whitewater paddling and climbing herself, and she helps people of all abilities accomplish those things as well. Amazingly, she has a 1-year-old at home, but looks very well rested, more than I do, and I don't have 1-year-old.
Thanks, Linda. Like Linda said, my name is Chelsea Elder. You can go ahead and go to the next slide, Lori. I'm the executive director of Adaptive Ventures, and I actually got started with the organization in 2010 as a volunteer, and then became staff in 2014, and have worked a variety of roles within the organization, but now oversee our national efforts to provide adaptive sports programming throughout the United States. Next slide, please. So our organization was founded in 1999 by 2 individuals with physical disabilities who were looking for the opportunity to provide people a really true adventure experience outside of the Paralympic track. And so we actually started with like some big adaptive ski camps where we went to different locations across the United States, such as Jackson Hole and Grand Targhee, and a lot of other different locations, Steamboat, Keystone, to provide programs. And then we also had an accessible houseboat on Lake Powell, and that's where the organization began. So our mission is to provide progressive outdoor sports opportunities to improve quality of life for children, adults, and veterans with physical disabilities and their families. And that's really important to us, that we include the families in everything that we do. Next slide, please. And here's a couple of pictures that kind of give you an idea of the scope of the work that we do. We've got a cycling program up there in El Paso, Texas. We've got adaptive climbing, water skiing, paddle boarding, dragon boat racing, and skiing are just a few of the offerings that we have. Next slide. So why Adaptive Ventures? Well, we are actually located in Lakewood, Colorado is our headquarter office. And then we also have an office in Illinois. And then we travel across the country to provide services with equipment-filled trailers. So we believe in freedom through mobility. So getting away from the perceived barriers of or limitations, and getting to experience the freedom and joy and exhilaration of sport that sports provide. We believe that everybody should have access to participation in outdoor sports, and that they should be able to achieve the level of independence that they desire. Next slide, please. So our staff, we have a very small staff that travels the country to provide these services. We provide ongoing programs in Colorado and Illinois. And so the way that it kind of works is our Colorado staff provides ongoing programs directly in Colorado, but travels to most of the United States with those trailers that I was describing earlier. And then our staff in Illinois provides ongoing programs in Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, and a couple of other surrounding states. So our goal is really to serve the most unserved and underserved areas of the country, and we are always looking to partner and collaborate with more people. The other thing that I absolutely love about our staff is that most of them either have a physical disability themselves or have somebody in their family with a physical disability, so they can really understand the different challenges that somebody may be going through when they come to our program. Most of them have spent time in rehabilitation hospitals themselves after a life-altering injury or disease, and so they can really help and connect on a very genuine level when getting somebody into a new sporting activity. Next slide, please. So as an organization, we serve typically around 3,000 unique participants and their families every year. We provide programs in cycling, climbing, kayaking, paddleboarding, dragon boat racing, skiing, snowboarding, water skiing, and wakeboarding. And we travel to about 30 states per year to provide these services. And we do this by collaborating with a lot of different entities, including doing training and facilitation of programs, so we can help to build sustainable programs in areas that currently don't have programs. So that may be us training a climbing gym how to have an adaptive climbing program, maybe working with an outfitter to help them with access for adaptive kayaking or paddleboarding, or it may be us training therapists from the local rehab hospital, park and rec districts, or other adaptive sport agencies in the area. Next slide, please. So here we have a picture of one of our mono skiers. This was taken at Steamboat at one of our camps that serve civilians and veterans with physical disabilities. Next slide, please. And this one is one of my favorite sports that we offer, dragon boat racing. Dragon boat is the only team sport that Adaptive Ventures provides, but dragon boat is one of the largest sports in the world. And so if you look up dragon boat associations in your area, you'll most likely find one located near you. It's a very big sport. There are a lot of breast cancer survivor teams. We are one of the only adaptive providers for dragon boat racing, but what I love about it is it provides a lot of camaraderie, and it's a really fun sport that really kind of levels the playing field for people with physical disabilities. We compete against a lot of corporate teams, and on very rare occasion do we actually compete against another quote unquote adaptive team. Next slide, please. So like I mentioned, those are our core sports that we provide. Typically, when we are traveling to provide services, it is usually in cycling, climbing, or paddle sports. And then we have a traveling ski program that we also provide, where we actually go to different mountain locations and partner with organizations within that area. So typically in October, we release our ski camp information, and so that's for our whole ski season from January to April, and it includes intermediate, beginner, advanced camps for individuals looking to get involved in skiing, and that could be anywhere from Keystone, Colorado to Big Sky, Montana, to Grand Targhee or Jackson Hole, Wyoming to Banff, Canada. So lots of different opportunities. We usually have about 20 different ski camps that we're involved in during the winter. Next slide, please. So our values as an organization is really to promote inclusive community, to help individuals to gain independence in the sports that they prefer, and then obviously to work on health and fitness and wellness along the way, and then of course affordability. So adaptive sporting equipment is not cheap, and so we are always looking for ways to help individuals to get connected to resources to be able to get equipment grants for equipment that they are interested in, and then also to make sure that they get fitted for the proper equipment. So when we do our traveling programs, one of our main goals is to make sure that people can try a variety of different equipment. Like, for example, Linda was talking about recumbent bikes and trikes. So making sure that they can get into the right piece of equipment and don't end up spending $5,000 on a piece of equipment that is then going to sit in their garage And then we also really help to connect them with equipment grants. There are tons of adaptive equipment grants out there for people that are interested in getting their own equipment. Next slide, please. So I have a couple of examples of adaptive equipment for those that haven't seen it before. On the left-hand side is a bi-ski. This is going to be for somebody that has either paralysis or very limited mobility and is interested in getting out and trying to ski for the first time. This is a really good way to start. Then on the right-hand side, we have a mono ski. So it has a single ski on the bottom. That's for somebody that's kind of leaning more towards independence. We'll have instructors with them, but may start working towards being able to ski independently. And then on the bottom, we have a ski bike, which is utilized for individuals that may have fatigue issues or back pain and maybe want to start out upright skiing in the beginning part of the day, but then move to the ski bike as they get fatigued towards the end of the day. We also have a lot of people who are visually impaired or amputees that prefer to utilize the ski bike. But typically when you go out for an adaptive ski lesson, you're going to have at least 3 instructors typically that are going to be working with you, 2 that are going to be helping block on either side of you, and 1 that's the lead instructor that's helping you to navigate down the mountain, whether that's being tethered or they're just doing voice commands for you. Next slide, please. Then we have adaptive paddling equipment. This is all made by one company called Creating Ability out of Minnesota. They are really the only adaptive equipment manufacturer for kayaking that I know of in the United States. They provide us with all of our gear and all of our partners with gear. There's a lot of different types of adaptations. Starting with the left, you can see there's some grip assist for individuals that may have lost some of their grip function. This is an easy way to be able to make sure that they maintain contact with the paddle. Moving towards the right, we have what's called a Y base, and that with very, very limited motion, you can paddle. So it holds the paddle in place for those that might not be able to hold it upright for the duration of the paddle. And then towards the bottom, we have a transfer board, so making transfers really easy from a wheelchair into the kayak. This is it functions just similarly to a slide board so that you can just easily get in and out of the kayak seat without much fuss. And then you'll also see wheels attached underneath that. That's so that we can roll individuals from their car down to the water's edge and minimize the amount of in and out of their wheelchair that they have to do when coming to our program. And then on the right-hand side, the boat has lateral supports, head support, and then also outriggers for stability for the kayak. So lots of different options to be able to make that truly accessible. For our organization, we always like to start with minimal, and then if it's needed, we will increase the adaptations, but we want to make sure that if somebody is looking to become independent, that they're not spending money on equipment that they don't need later on in the future, that they really could do without and still be independent. Next slide, please. Next one is climbing equipment. So the picture on the right is of our national climbing manager, Craig DiMartino. He's an amputee himself who lost his leg after a climbing accident. He helped to create this foot that you see, that's the Vol foot, and it goes on to any prosthetic easily, and it really changes the game for amputees that are interested in climbing. And then to the right, we have what's called the mechanical advantage system. And so Adaptive Ventures has been highly involved with making sure that these systems are constantly being improved. So basically, for somebody who has very limited mobility in their legs and would like to just utilize their arms to climb, they can utilize this system to do basically a modified pull-up up the wall. And we can change the weight ratios so that they're doing like a 4-to-1 or a 3-to-1 to make it easier for them to ascend the wall. And so the picture of this young gentleman, Sam, on the wall there, he actually has joined our club and climbs regularly. And so he's gotten quite good at utilizing that mechanical advantage system. Next slide, please. The next one we have is adaptive cycling equipment, which both Michael and Linda alluded to earlier. There's a ton of variety of bikes. Just to give you an idea, We have about 75 different types of adaptive cycles that we keep in our main trailer that travels around with us. And every one of them fits differently and can be configured differently. So for example, if you have no use on one side of your body, the braking and shifting and gearing system can all be shifted to the other side. We've even had people who have had incomplete spinal cord injuries where they utilize their head or their elbows for braking, voice shifting, voice braking. So there's all different types of modifications that can be made. Starting with the right, there's a Berkel bike that is utilized as a rehab bike. It can be utilized by hand pedal or foot pedal or both. So if you have one side with weakness or your whole body has weakness, you can utilize this bike for short rides to kind of rehabilitate and to gain strength. Then to the right of that, we have a TerraTrike. That's a kind of a standard recumbent trike, really nice for people who have lower back issues or don't have the stability and want something that's a little bit more stable. And all of the different types of trikes have a different center of balance and gravity, so it's good to try a variety of them before you go out and purchase one. On the bottom, we have a hand cycle. So the Force 3 is actually one that's for somebody who's a little bit more interested in being very independent, maybe looking into doing challenges, and the grips can be changed on those, modified, so can the seating positions. And then to the right of that, we have an upright hand cycle, which would be for somebody who is really looking for like an even transfer from their wheelchair or just starting out hand cycling and wants to get a feel for it before going to the lower versions. Next slide, please. Adaptive water skiing equipment really hasn't changed in the many years that it's been available. It's a basic cage on a water ski. And so those programs are provided throughout the United States, especially in kind of areas with a big lake culture. So definitely look for those opportunities within your area. Next slide, please. Next, we have dragon boat racing, which I talked about earlier. It's essentially 20 paddlers in a boat sitting side by side in twos with a stern steering the boat and a drummer that is helping everybody to stay on cadence. The thing I love about dragon boat is even though there's not a lot of adaptations that are manufactured currently, it's very adaptable to a wide variety of abilities. We have a lot of visually impaired that really enjoy to participate. In the pictures there, we have a one-arm paddler, Gary, who likes to participate, that we created a one-arm paddle adaptation for him. We also have different seating for individuals that may need extra support when they're in the boat. And again, it's just a great sport to provide a lot of camaraderie. And we are always looking for new areas to partner to provide training and to facilitate those programs in new dragon boat clubs. Next slide, please. Right now, due to COVID, we are currently running all of our programs online. So we have a huge variety of virtual program offerings. We've actually ran over 350 different programs online in the last 3.5 months. So if you are interested in getting involved, you can go to adaptiveadventures.org and sign up on our events tab for upcoming programs, which are in person. They're usually about an hour long. We have a little bit of a social component, and then we have instructors that will instruct and be able to adapt to any needs that you have. So it's utilizing equipment that you have in your home. With the exception of cycling, you do need a trainer in those situations, but we have strength and core for climbing. We have a stay home, stay fit. We have a very popular resistance band program that we're providing right now. We have all kinds of intro to sport offerings. So please go make sure and go and check those out. Also, we have a YouTube page where we've been posting all of our recordings. Adaptive Adventures Facebook or YouTube page, you can go there and you can watch the recordings there. Next slide, please. And there's my contact information if you're interested in getting a hold of me. If you are looking for programs to be offered in your area and you currently don't have any programs in the area, we're always happy to talk about the potential for us coming out and partnering. training different entities within the area to be able to help facilitate programs further. And also during the year, we usually provide about 600 different programs throughout the country. So please check our calendars out, get onto our newsletter, and look for those opportunities in your area. Also, we're a great resource for finding resources that already exist in your area. So if you're in an area that you're not sure who to get connected with, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'd be happy to connect you with the folks in your area that do provide services. So thanks again for having me. I really appreciate it, and happy to answer any questions that come up.
Thank you, I appreciate it. You know, it's so educational, and just seeing what Adaptive Avengers has to offer makes me really excited, because it looks like so much fun.
Thank you.
Great, that was excellent. Thank you guys. Linda, David, Chelsea, Michael, that was great. Tons of varieties of recreational opportunities that you provided us all. And Chelsea, I know that you provided some things to think about that your organization provides during the pandemic. Linda and Michael, what have you guys been doing during the COVID-19 pandemic to stay active?
Well, let's do it first.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, we've been going to the lake several times a week. We do have an income pool, so we do a lot of swimming. And the kids and I go out on the bikes a lot. So between biking, swimming, and kayaking, keeps us pretty active. We also have a garden, so we do the gardening and, you know, general yard work, so it keeps us pretty busy. But one thing I wanted to add too that I didn't mention was for about 12 years, I was a wrestling coach, a high school wrestling coach. And one of the words I hated the most in the wrestling room was the word can't. So basically, whenever you say the word can't, you kind of defeat yourself. And so I wouldn't allow the word in. And the seminar here, adaptive recreation, is I've had ataxia for over 30 years now, and I've definitely had to adapt. I've always been a very active person, and definitely have to adapt and do things differently.
That's great. Thanks, Mike.
So,
Linda, what have you been doing?
Well, unlike Mike, I'm naturally super lazy, actually. So I've been trying to do some chair yoga, and so I have a book, and I've been doing that at home. And we go out for some just like walks in the neighborhood, and we have a bike trail near our house, and so I do take the recumbent bike out there. But I'm definitely not as active as I probably should be. And I think I'm going to go to the Adaptive Adventures and sign up for the events there, because I think maybe if I have someone to help coach me through it, I'd be more likely to do it than doing it on my own. So
I agree, Linda. That's a great resource. All right. So another thing that I want to get out there for our audience is maybe Linda and Mike and David and Chelsea too. You can all share with us why you think that folks out there should get involved with adaptive recreation. What benefits adaptive recreation can bring to the attendees' lives? Who would like to start?
for me, I see a lot of posts on the NAF website about, or the Facebook page or whatever, about people that used to do different things, then they have ataxia, and then now they're depressed because they don't do anything anymore. But my thing is, you're in control of that. You know, you will get depressed, you will have anxiety, you will have emotional problems if you continue to let ataxia define who you are. So you just have to accept that you have it and then figure out a way to be who you used to be. You know, at some point you can't sit around and mope all the time. You have to make it happen. So
That's very proactive and positive.
I think the biggest benefits that we see within our organization is that just getting out and being able to recreate with your family, recreate with other people who may have similar life experiences as you do. You know, a lot of the online programs that I was talking about that we're running right now, you know, we keep the Zoom room open after the program is over, and I'll get on there 5-6 hours after the program's over and people are still talking with each other and sharing, or still exercising together. So that's a big benefit. Obviously, the emotional benefits, physical benefits, you know, I've seen even during this pandemic, I had a veteran who called me the other day who had lost 40 pounds doing our online programs in the last 3 months. So it's just really, you know, there's so many different benefits to it, but really getting out and making sure that you get out in just a green space every day will really help your mental and emotional health.
Mike, anything to say on that about why folks should get involved in adaptive recreation or what benefits it's brought to your life?
Well, I agree. That's in your general overall mood is going to be more positive. You know, if you sit around and mope about it, you're going to fall further into depression. I know that a few years back, I went to Kennedy Krieger, and Dr. Russian there was, you know, examining me. He says, you know, Mike, you're a very unfair patient to me. And I'm like, kind of muffled a little bit. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, well, you maintain your fitness. You take care of yourself. A lot of the things that I have a lot of patients do are not challenging for you. So I gotta increase what I do and make it harder, make it more challenging because you maintain your fitness and take care of yourself. So if you maintain that aspect of your life, you're going to be a whole lot better off than sitting on the couch doing nothing. Emotionally, it's great to get out with other people. If you sit and stare at 4 walls all the day, you're going nuts.
Yeah, I'd just like to add one of the things that in the national parks we're trying to do is to really get the information out there about what the experience is, instead of saying, hey, this is the lone accessible experience. We're trying to provide the information for a wide range of physical challenges, and to get the information so people can decide and plan according to what their capabilities are. Anyway, we're trying to get more and more information out there because I think that's important, and people like Mike and so forth that really want to challenge themselves, that, you know, they can make up their own mind, right? What they want to do and what they can do. But so anyway, that information is out there in national parks, and if it's not, you know, call the visitor center and get a hold of people and get that information.
Thanks so much, David, and thank all of you guys. Another thing that I wanted to let our attendees know about before we go is that a recording of this webinar will be made available, so you can go back and check out anything that you may miss or share it with others who may be interested in this topic. And Mike mentioned earlier in his talk about the Tri-Able Facebook group that's out there to join. I think that's a great group. As you go out to your trike dealers to check out the different trikes, you can also go on that Facebook page and get different input about some different things from those with ataxia that are out there triking around, as many of us are. Thanks again to our panel. Thanks everyone for joining us today. And I hope you take care and stay safe out there, everyone. Bye.
Bye. See ya. Thank you.
you.